In this video, we're going to be learning how to make a super awesome print and cut invitation project. Go ahead and grab your supplies, and this is super fun, so let's get crafting along. I just opened up Silhouette Studio on my computer, and we're going to begin in the page setup panel. If your page setup panel is not already open, you can just come up to this upper right hand corner where this little page is, and you can click it and it will open up the panel for you. This is the default that Silhouette Studio opens to, having the Cameo 4 as the machine and the cutting mat as well, and then 12 by 12 paper or media size. We are going to be changing just a couple things for this. We're not going to be changing our machine, but if you are using a different machine, go ahead and open the drop-down menu and select the machine you're using. We're not changing the feed type. That's going to be auto, which is manual. The cutting mat is going to stay the same. It's going to be the 12 by 12 cutting mat for the Cameo, and then our media size is going to change. We're going to change that to letter size paper, which is 8.5 by 11. And the reason that we're changing it to 8.5 by 11 paper is because this is a print and cut project, so we're printing it out of our printer, and most printers take 8.5 by 11 paper. Sometimes you can use a printer that uses other size paper, but this is what we're using today. For print and cut, it's very important that you navigate over to this rectangle in the page setup menu, which is the third rectangle over, and this is the registration menu. So we're going to turn on our registration marks. So once you've navigated to this page, you're going to come over and click on for the registration marks, and you'll see that these little black squares and corners show up on your paper. These are going to print on your paper, and the machine has an optical eye that will read these marks to know where it needs to cut. And the crosshatch gray area will not print, but we need to make sure that our design does not print in that area or overlap with that area, because that will make the design too close to the actual page. Or too close to the actual mark, which will make it difficult to read. We need to also make sure that we stay inside this red cut border so that our pieces will cut inside of the area as well. So that's everything that we have to do to set up our page, and now we can go ahead and start designing our project. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create the base for our project. And most invitations are 5 inches by 7 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over my rectangle over here, which is the drawing tool, and then select the rectangle, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And you can either try and draw this to 5 by 7, or you can just draw a rectangle and then navigate up here to the toolbar where we can see the width and the height, and unlock this little padlock, and then you can make it the exact dimensions you want. So we're going to make it 5 inches wide and 7 inches tall. And then we're going to go ahead and lock this padlock so that the aspect ratio stays the same. We can then go to the select tool, so just change it so we're not going to draw another rectangle. And then we are going to go ahead and change the color of our rectangle to the color that we would like for our invitation. So the way that we do this is we're going to select our rectangle just by clicking on it, and then we're going to navigate over to our fill panel on the right hand side, and the fill panel is this little panel that looks like an artist palette. So I'm going to go ahead and click that panel, and you can see that there's tons of default colors that automatically pop up that we can use. We can also do a custom color down here by selecting it with this color picker, or we can even use the hex value of a color if you have a hex value you want to use. I'm just going to use the default color palette today, which has so many colors for us to pick from, and I would love to make my invitation a light blue color. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one that's like the second from the bottom, and that is what we need to do to create the base of our invitation. Now that we have a blue rectangle, we're going to create a white rectangle on the inside, which is where we're going to put all of the information for our party. We're going to use the offset tool in Silhouette Studio to do this, and the offset tool will make a shape inside of our shape that we select that has an even border all the way around. So we're going to go ahead and select our blue rectangle, and then we're going to come over to the right hand toolbar and navigate to the offset panel, which is this star within a star, and we're going to click it, And we're going to use an internal offset today, which puts the shape on the inside of our selected shape, but an offset, a standard offset, would put the shape on the outside of the shape. So we just need to go ahead and click the internal offset, and we want our internal offset to be 1 inch. So we're just going to type a 1 into the box, and then we're going to click apply. Now we need to make this box white. So I'm going to go back to my fill panel and select the white color. And this is kind of the base for our invitation. Now we have a nice border that we can put some designs around, and we also have a good square in the middle, a good rectangle in the middle where we can put all of our information. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of these rectangles by drawing a rectangle over the top of them, and then I want them to align in the middle of my page. So I'm going to come over to the right-hand toolbar and open the transform panel, and then I'm going to click to the center of the page right here, and it will just align everything in the middle of the page, vertically and horizontally. So that's all we need to do for that. All right, now that we have placed our invitation base onto our print and cut page, we can go ahead and start by creating the text that's going to be on our page. So we're going to use the text tool over here, which is on the left side of Silhouette Studio. So we just select this little A, and then I'm going to just click to start typing. And I'm going to type out all of the information that's going to go on our invitation first, and then I'm going to show you how to format it. So at the top of my invitation, I love for it to say, "You're invited." And then I'm going to press enter, and I'm just going to write another salutation type thing that say Noah is our birthday boy. Noah is turning, and I'm going to put the number 4. And then I'm going to have all of the information for this party. So just the standard things that you would put on an invitation. So the time of the party, it's going to be Saturday, let's say July 15th. And we need to put the time. Let's do 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. And then we need to put our address. For the sake of this class, we're just going to make up an address, 123 Jungle Drive, and we will put our phone number for RSVP as well. So we're going to RSVP, and I'll just do 000, 000, and 0000. But you'll obviously fill in your invitation with the correct information for your party. So at this point, we can go ahead and begin formatting this text. And the way that we do that, first, I just want to make sure that it's all center justified. So I just selected all of my text, and then I'm going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to center justify everything. And for this exact invitation, I actually am going to use 2 different fonts and some different sizes of fonts too. So I want to make "You're Invited" the big, bold font that everybody's going to notice. And something that's really cool about Silhouette Studio is that you can use any font that you already have on your computer. So what we need to do is we're just going to go ahead and select the text that we want to change right now. And I'm just going to go line by line here. So the "You're Invited" I have selected, and then I'm just going to come up to my top toolbar, and up here you can see the font is listed. And I'm just going to type Safari because that's the font that I'm going to be using for this part of the invitation. And then I'd also love to make this "for" and exclamation mark the same font. So I'm going to do the same thing for that part. And then let's go ahead and make this part a little bit bigger. Yeah, let's do 144, that looks good. I think the "You're Invited" we're going to have to put on 2 different lines, yeah. Which I think I'll actually really like how that looks. It's going to fit good in our rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit just because our text is getting a little bit big for this part of the project. And let's also just grab this and move it over a little bit. Once you navigate out of it and you're not selected in, you won't be able to select your text just by dragging. So you just need to double click to re-enter the text editing phase. So now we can go ahead and change the rest of our fonts. So the Noah is turning part, I still want that to be kind of a bold font, but I'm just going to look through some of the fonts that I have. Let's try this Aloha font. Yeah, I like how that looks. I do like how that looks, but I think I want to just pick something nice and simple, like a standard font. Maybe let's do Arial Black. Or just standard Arial. This is really fun because Silhouette Studio, anybody can be a designer in Silhouette Studio. And I love that because you can just try so many different things and just play around with it until it's exactly how you want it. Let's do, I think, Arial Rounded. Yes, I love Arial Rounded. Okay, we're going to go with that. So I made Noah is turning Arial Rounded, and I think I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller. Let's make it like 55 point font. And then we're going to change all of this information down here to Arial Rounded 55 point as well. Perfect. So this is kind of the base of our invitation. It's still obviously too big to fit inside of our white rectangle, but before we size it down to put it inside of there, I'm just going to go ahead and change the color of my text because right now it's not a color at all. So I want to make it kind of like this charcoal black color. I love using charcoal gray in place of black just because it's a little bit different and it still looks really nice. So we can go ahead and make it this charcoal black, and now we can resize it to fit inside of our rectangle. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to select the text, and then we're going to drag the corner down, and then just keep dragging it down until it fits inside our rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in now by using this magnifying glass at the top. So it looks like I want to take it down a little bit more. And we can fill in that extra white space with designs too. I'm just going to drag it down a little bit more. I like this size, and now I want to center it with the rest of my design. So I'm just going to come up to the top to do this, and we can just center it to the page also. And then we're going to center it to the pieces that we have selected, and we're going to vertically center it and then middle center it also. Okay, so this is what our invitation looks like at this point, and now we just get to add some fun designs to the border, which is totally optional. If you just wanted a simple invitation, you could do this, but we're going to add some leaves and maybe a couple animals to the outside from our library. Now that we have our invitation created, like the bones of our invitation, we can go ahead and add some embellishment in the form of leaves and animals and flowers and anything that you want. So since we're using our jungle theme, we're going to use the jungle designs from our library. So we're going to go and navigate to the library in the upper right hand corner. It's one of these 3 tabs, and I'm going to click that. And then in the search panel, I'm actually going to type jungle, and the jungle designs that come with your machine automatically pop up. And like I said, we want to use some animals, so I'm going to grab this giraffe and tiger design, and the way that we do that is we just double click the designs to open them. They will open in a different tab, so what we need to do is we just need to draw a rectangle over the top of those, and then we're just going to right click and click group actually, and then we're going to right click and copy them and then close this design. We don't need to save it, and then we're just going to right click and paste these animals in, and we can just drag them off to the left or right side for right now, and then we're going to repeat the process with any of the other designs we want to bring in. So we're going to go back into the library. I'd like to use some of these leaves. I really like the monstera leaves. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle over those, and we can group them and then copy them, close this design, and then we can right click and paste them. And then let's repeat it with these leaves too. I'm not sure that I'm going to use all of these in this project, but we might as well bring them in just to see. And then let's go ahead and grab our little flowers too. And these ones actually are all different. No, they're not all different pieces. Okay, I thought that they were different layers, but they're not. So we're just going to grab them as is and group them. All right, so we have all of our elements here in the window, and I just zoomed out by pressing the magnifying glass at the top, and then I'm going to resize all of these at once just to make them a little bit smaller. So I'm going to drag a rectangle over all of these elements and then just make them smaller. And then I'm going to click off of them and then just click each one and drag them just to separate them out. And then lastly, I just want to ungroup all of these elements so I can place the individual ones all around. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to draw a rectangle over the top of all of them, and then I'm going to right click and select ungroup. And that makes the giraffe separate from the tiger, all of the leaves separate, and the flowers separate too. So before we begin placing these animals and things around the invitation, I don't love that my giraffe and my tiger are black silhouettes. I think that'll look a little bit stark on the invitation. So I would love to make my animals the same color as maybe one of my flowers or something. So let's go ahead and select the giraffe. And I already had the fill panel open because that was the last tool I used. But you probably don't. So let's go ahead and open the fill panel by clicking the artist palette. And then we're going to use this eyedropper tool right here. So go ahead and make sure your giraffe is selected and then click the eyedropper tool. And then we can actually just click this orange color of the flower, and it will color my giraffe to be that same color. And we can just repeat the same thing with the tiger. After you color pick that color, it will actually show up in your recently used. And I actually would like them to be the same color, so I'm just going to use that to make the tiger the same color. And now we can go ahead and place all of our different elements around our invitation. So I would love to put the giraffe kind of like right here with my invitation. And I kind of want the giraffe to be a little bit bigger. I like having like the mouth of the head of the giraffe kind of overlapping almost with the text. Not overlapping, but just in between the text right there. And just make sure you're staying inside your cut border right here. These aren't necessarily going to cut out the outside of the animal, but we just want to make sure that nothing's overlapping with that to not mess up the machine and the print and cut registration marks. So let's place our tiger now. Like I said before, I think that I like all of my elements to face inward towards my text or the middle of my project. So I don't love having the tiger facing out. So what we're going to do is we're going to mirror the tiger. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click, and then I'm going to select flip horizontally, and it will just flip the tiger so that it's facing inward. And then I'd love to make the tiger a little bit bigger as well. And then just put him kind of down in the corner, a little bit cut off, I guess. And let's just make the giraffe a tiny bit bigger as well. And I'm not going to use any other animals for my invitation, but I'd love to place some of these leaves just kind of surrounding the animals, maybe on top of them, just overlapping kind of. Let's see what we like. So let's begin by maybe placing this leaf kind of in front of the tiger. And I love elements that are kind of popping off the page. I think that it really adds a lot to different designs. So I really like having this leaf kind of overlapping the white and overlapping the tiger, but still coming off the page. And then I'd love to have this leaf as well, but I need to rotate it because I don't want it to be coming off like this. I want it to be coming from the bottom up. So I just am going to use this little green circle at the top, and when you hover over it, this little circle and arrow will show up, and then we can just use that to rotate the design. And then let's make it a tiny bit bigger. And I do like this placement. I like the leaf showing up in between this leaf and the tiger, but if it was showing up on top of your elements, you can reorder your elements by using these buttons up here. So I would like my light green leaf to be on the top. So I'm going to select that light green leaf, and then I'm going to click bring to front, and it will bring it in front of my other pieces. So you can reorder all of your elements by clicking those pieces, just so you're aware, but these showed up actually the way that I wanted them to, which is kind of funny. So I'm going to move this down just a tiny bit, and I really like this kind of corner for my tiger. And then for my giraffe, I'd love to use some more elements, so I'd like this leaf to be super big coming from the corner. And it's okay if, you know, they overlap or if they cover up some of the animal. Try to not cover up any of your information, because if you do that, they won't have the information for the party. So just make sure that you're not covering up the information, even if you're covering up other elements. And then let's go ahead and make this kind of big that goes up the side of the invitation almost. And I think this kind of looks funny, like poking on top of the giraffe. So I'm just going to select my giraffe, and then I'm going to hold down my shift key to select my dark green leaf, and I'm just going to bring those to the front of this leaf. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and do my top corners. I have my flowers that I haven't used yet, so let's put this leaf in this corner. We can make it a little bit bigger. And let's go ahead and do the orange flower. And one thing that I haven't done yet that we can do is we can put, I said don't cover up your text with the pieces, but you can always put your text on top. So this flower, I think it would be kind of cute to have it behind the "You're Invited." So let's go ahead and place it, and then click the text and just have bring to the front of everything. That's super fun. And then let's go ahead and put this leaf up here. I want to rotate it though to kind of stretch across the top and make it a little bit bigger. And since we put our text on top of everything, we don't have to do that again for this leaf because it's already on top of all the designs in our studio. And then lastly, let's just add a couple more things. Let's add one of these fun leaves. I'm going to kind of turn it upside down and make it a lot bigger. Let's put maybe this white flower in the corner up here. And then let's put maybe a little flower right here. And I actually like that. I'm not going to use this last leaf. So you can just go ahead and select it and delete it. And now we are pretty much done with our project. We just need to do a couple things to fix it so it's all ready to send to print. So one thing that you will notice when you create all of your designs, all designs in Silhouette Studio will kind of have this red outline around them, and we don't want that to show up when we print it. So what we need to do is just draw a rectangle over the top of all of your designs, and then up here in the left-hand corner you can see this kind of red bounding box, and we just need to select the drop-down menu and then select No Fill, which is this little white square that has gray lines crossing and going through it, or sorry, no border. And so when you do that, the red border won't show up anymore, even though it's still going to cut. So then the next thing that we need to do is we don't want this whole invitation to cut. We don't want the giraffe to cut out like this. And when we go to the send panel, anything that's outlined in red is going to cut. And you can see everything's outlined in red, which would just create a mess on your mat. And you would not have a complete invitation to send to your friends. So the only thing that we want to cut is actually our blue rectangle. So I think the easiest way to do this is to make everything a no cut and then to make the blue a cut. So let's just go ahead and draw a rectangle over the top of everything. And then we're going to go to the send panel, which is your upper right corner, and click that and then select no cut. And right now nothing's going to cut, which is not what we want either. So we just need to go back to the design panel, and then we're going to just click off of everything and then just click our blue rectangle. So you can see that's the only thing that's selected. And then we're going to go back to the send panel and we will select cut. And now this is what's going to cut, is just this red box outside our invitation. So some of the giraffe and the leaves are going to be cut, but that's just going to create a really nice, beautiful edge and interesting invitation. So now that we have this ready to go, we can go ahead and send this to print. So the way that you're going to do that is you can just come up here to your top toolbar and you can just click send to printer. And then it will show you a preview of what it's going to look like. You can see that your marks will show up, your registration marks and your invitation will show up with all the colors, and then you can just click print. So we just printed out our invitation from the printer. This is what it looks like. You can see our registration marks in the corners and our fun invitation in the middle. So now let's just go ahead and set up our machine so that we can send this to cut in Silhouette Studio. After you've taken your power cords that come with your machine and plugged them in, you just need to press this power button on the right side of your machine, and some lights will come on this little control panel, and then the cameo will show up across the top, and that's how you know that it's ready to go and that we can put our machine in, or we can put our mat in. So go ahead and tug this lightly and then just slide it back the cover. Now I'm going to show you how to insert the blade into your machine. This is the auto blade that comes with your machine. You can see that it has a number 1 on the top, and then when you come over here to the blade carriage, there's a number 1 and a number 2. Your 1 tools will correspond and go in this first carriage. So what we need to do is we just need to pull out this little tiny tab and then put the blade into this circle and then push the blade down firmly and pull up slightly on this tab and then push inward, and it will kind of do a double click, and that's how you know that the blade inserted correctly and it's all the way inside. Now we can go ahead and put our paper onto our mat. So we're going to take off the blue cover that comes on your mat, and this is just a protection cover that will keep your mat from getting dirty and dusty and things like that. And then we can take our printed paper and line it up with the corner of our mat. And you want to make sure to line it up as good as you can so that your machine can read the registration marks easily. So we're going to line it up along the top and then line it up along the side and just smooth it out. And now we can go ahead and load our material. And to load, we're going to line this edge of the mat up with this gray arrow and line. So we click the upward arrow on the light panel, and once it's blinking, it means that the sensor is able to read whether the mat is there or not. So we're going to line it up and then just hold it there for a second, and it loads automatically. And when you load with this method, you can see that you get a nice even load all the way across, which is why we want to do it. So now we're going to hop back into Silhouette Studio, and I'm just going to show you how to select the material you're using and just how to send it to the actual machine to create our cut. Back in Silhouette Studio, we're still in the design panel, which means that we need to change to the send panel. So we're going to come back up here to the upper right hand corner and just click the send button. And this is our send panel where we can change the material that we're using and send it to the actual machine to cut. So up here at the top, last time we used the vinyl material, so I'm just going to click the drop down menu and start typing cardstock. and it brings up a whole different, a whole group of cardstock options. We are using 80-pound cardstock, which most cardstock that you buy at the store is 80-pound cardstock to print on. So that's a good rule of thumb. If you're not sure, always go with the 80-pound option because it's what most cardstock is. We're not going to change any of the default settings. The blade depth is 3, the force is 30, and the speed is 4, but we're not going to change any of those. Our action is just cutting, which is the auto option, and then our tool is the auto blade, which is detected by the machine. So since our machine is connected and everything, all we have to do is press send. So right now the machine is registering, so it's reading those registration marks that we have. So it'll read the top one, then it'll come down and read the bottom one, and then it'll read the one in the upper right hand corner. And it does that to know where it needs to cut. So after it registers, it will start, it will change the blade depth, and then it will start cutting. All right, our machine just finished making the cut, and now it's really important that we make sure that it cut before we unload it. So I'm just going to come over to the corner and kind of peel it up a little bit, and it did. It cut perfectly. And the reason that we do that is if it didn't cut all the way through, you could send it for another pass in Silhouette Studio and it would cut in the exact same place. If you unload it and then reload it, it might not cut in the exact same spot. So you might have more than one cut line on there, and you don't want that. So it cut perfectly, so now we're just going to go ahead and unload our machine by pressing this downward arrow. And then I like to flip my mat over when I'm doing paper projects and just peel the mat away from the paper, and this helps the paper so it doesn't curl. And then we can discard this extra paper. You can see the border of the animals and things that we didn't use. And then we get our beautiful, awesome invitation. And you can see that the cut is just amazing. It cut very, very close. I mean, it's perfect. And this is just awesome for you to stick in envelopes and to mail out to your friends or to give to your friends for the party. So thanks so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed learning these Silhouette tools and how to do a basic print and cut project. See you next time.